Have you ever wondered what the difference is between yoga and Pilates? Well, today I'm going to answer that question for you from two perspectives. Hi, this is Sue. This is Sue with Sue Got Your Back. Welcome to my channel. I'm a certified balanced body instructor for Pilates. I am also an occupational therapist and personal trainer. And I've also practiced yoga in my youth. So the two perspectives I'm going to go ahead and talk about is one is from a medical rehab perspective. The other is from a spiritual or actually Christian perspective. Because there is both aspects. And realize that as you watch this video, that'll be my framework. I am a Christian, so that will be my framework. So differences and similarities. There are some similarities. Both are portable. Both can be done on a mat, which is great. You can take it wherever you want to go. Only one difference there is Pilates uses a lot of equipment. Joe developed this equipment to assist and resist. And also, the tools, all these tools that we have, you see a lot of equipment in my gym here, and there's more. But if you watch my video on posture, you'll see me do a swan on the mat, but you'll also see me do it on arc. And you'll notice my swan on the mat is not too impressive. As I don't have I have herring to run, my back doesn't really, the thoracic extension isn't really there. But with the arc, I can rock, and it seems to facilitate that more and get that extension better. I'm also do much better on the chair because I have an assistance to do the swan. So assistance, resistance makes it more accessible to many people with a lot of variety. Pilates has 500 different exercises. That's what I had to learn in my training. When I did yoga years ago, I had a little book, and I'm sure it probably has expanded. Things were added in, but however, the variety is wonderful in Pilates, and I'm sure yoga can be adapted too. But we just have a lot more tools. Both look at breathing and use breathing a lot. Yoga uses breathing for more abdominal breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, and for creating a level of consciousness. Pilates uses breathing to facilitate movement. You exhale for flexion, inhale for extension. You might inhale on this side of your rib cage during a mermaid to increase the opening of the intercostal space. Exhale on this side to activate and for your lateral flexors to be there, to activate those. You may inhale, exhale with rotation. And so breathing in Pilates is for movement. Both focus on flexibility, which is good. You need to be flexible. Yoga will stretch at the end range and hold it. Pilates will activate the muscle before you stretch. Pilates also has a lot of focus on the core and core stability. So what I've noticed as a Pilates instructor and my own friends, that people that practice a lot of yoga and maybe not do so much of anything else, core work or any other type of exercise, seem to have hypermobility issues. People come to me and they lay on the former and start doing things, and I like, have you practiced yoga a lot? Because I find that their pelvis is pretty unstable. So it's hard for them to disassociate their hip movements from the pelvis, which makes it difficult it can be difficult in life to lift heavy things without hurting your back. I mean, your back can kind of get involved in the lift in an unstable way if the pelvis and all this isn't really stable. You don't have the ability to stabilize. So my friend had a knee problem, and she went to physical therapy for the knee problem, and the physical therapist said to her, who's practiced yoga for a long time, said to her, "You are too hypermobile. You have to get some stability to help decrease your pain." So that's just an example from my experience. The other thing is both have a sequence to their exercises. In yoga, that sequence, which I did, was to progress to a higher level of consciousness. For Pilates, that sequence is to alternate. It is that there is a flow there that creates a flow, but also it creates different areas of your body. A good Pilates exercise different areas of your body. A good Pilates instructor will exercise flexion, extension, rotation, lateral flexion, and extension. And they'll put you in all different planes of movement. They'll put you facing front, facing back, on your side, on your back, on your front, all those different planes of movement to get all different aspects of the body. So that's part of the training that we get in Pilates. Another thing is, I would say, is the aspect of the medical. And for that, I'm going to kind of go into the roots a little bit. Now, yoga was brought over here in 1883 by a Swami. Yoga is a Hindu, based from Hinduism. I was encouraged to read the Bhagavad Gita when I took yoga. When yoga came over, the medical aspect was kind of added in a little bit, the physical benefits, to help it be more widespread or acceptable in America. And back then, a long time ago, America was more of a Christian nation than it is now. However, Pilates kind of had that from the beginning. The reason is Joe was a sickly kid, and he was poor, so he had rickets and asthma, and part of it was from just not having the proper nutrition. So he used exercise to help himself. His dad was also a boxer, so Joe learned boxing. Joe ended up in an internment camp in England. Now, there's two stories. You could read The Caged Lion for more details, and later I'll put out a video on more Pilates history. But Pilates used to be called Contrology, controlling the mind and the body. There's a lot of cognitive aspects in Pilates. However, Joe ended up in this internment camp, and in England during World War I, because he was a German resident alien. Another story says he was on the animal ship and they got caught putting mines in the Thames River. Either way, whatever reason is, he was in that internment camp. He started working with the inmates there and doing his exercise program. He was already involved in fitness, so he shared it. Then the Spanish flu came and none of the guys got sick. So they noticed Joe, put him in charge of the infirmary. Back then they just did morphine and bed rest. Joe did real well in the infirmary. The story is that he, to help people that were infirm move, he started thinking of ways to do that, and that's kind of where the machine's ideas started. After he got out of this internment camp and went back to Germany, World War II was starting to brew up. They wanted him to work with the Hitler's Youth. Joe didn't want to have anything to do with that. So he ended up getting on a boat and coming to the United States. On that boat, he met his gal Clara. Clara is a nurse. They come in 1826, 1827, they open up the clinic, their Pilates studio, or Contrology studio, in the same building as New York City Ballet. Ballerinas started to come because they had injuries, and this, you'll see a little bit of influence of ballet in Pilates. But Clara and Joe started to help them with their injuries. So you see, the medical was always a little bit in there. Joe studied movement. In fact, the book, The Caged Lion, is named after that because Joe would go to the zoo and watch animals move. So Joe is a movement kind of expert in a way. And for his time, he was way ahead of his time. Yoga's movement is based on positions that worship gods. So, like I said, it's Hindu, based in Hinduism. Now, before all that goes, before you click off, I want to let you know that there are focused folks that do Christian yoga. They call Christian yoga just focusing on the postures. However, I would say, just in essence, and from my own journey, one is yoga and Christianity have two different philosophies. With the meditation and all that, it's very inward focused. Christianity is God and other focused. And that can kind of lead you down a different path. There's two paths. This is the way I see it. There's two paths. I, as a young person, in my 20s, when I went down the yoga path, it led me to very much focus on self, and also thinking I can control things and you can always control your attitude, you control your behavior. That's what you can control, your choices. But life you can't control. And when things in life come at you, which they did at me at that time, I got very depressed and even went towards suicidal, and I knew something was wrong. So I soon cried out to the Lord through prayer, and it was soon after that circumstances were that I was reintroduced to Christ and committed my life to Him. So that's my story. Now, knowing that, as a believer, would you want somebody else to go down that same road? So it can be confusing, because as a Christian practicing yoga on a regular basis or teaching yoga can be kind of confusing to somebody who is maybe like me, like when I first became really, why are they teaching yoga? That's what that whole path I left, So just saying, also you don't want to lead your brother to stumble. Now, with all that being said, is it wrong to just do a sun pose and stretch in isolation? I don't think so. A child's pose and I'll do it in my yoga practice. In my Pilates, I don't have to practice yoga. In my Pilates practice, in between extension exercise, I don't think that's a problem, but I think a regular practice of yoga for a believer is just not, and it's not for me. So that's the two perspectives. I do want to end with a quote that might be helpful. And this is actually from a secular source, a Cleveland clinic. I want to see, it's called Yoga versus Pilates, and you could look this up yourself. The difference between two great exercises. And I'll just read this a little part of it. And it says, the goal, explains Dr. Goldfarb, was to help people with injuries to heal using their core strength and guided exercises. That's the Pilates goal. The goal for yoga, on the other hand, is rooted in centuries-old spiritual practice meant to enhance your mind-body connection to achieve enlightenment. So, again, that's the two paths you choose. But if you have any questions, just feel free to hit that little button, subscribe, ask questions, whatever. And like I said, I'll put another video in the future about the history, more of Joe's journey from the book, The Cage Lion. Okay? Look forward to that. See ya.